Now I'm ready.
Now I gotta do it. 6 p.m. I bring the study session for the Board of Directors of the Colorado City Metropolitan District to order for October 25th, 2022.
Okay, first on the agenda, you have the budget draft. We set up the November public hearing for water rates. Also, the budget hearing, it was advertised in the newspaper. So that's when we're having it, is November 22nd. If you have any changes or things that you've noticed in the budget, please bring it to us. Like I said, it's a work in progress up until December, the first meeting in December.
So what you're saying is that as far as us discussing it tonight, if we have specific questions, we can, but really we can still do it for the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
We can still make
But as we,
changes.
you know, we like to keep the changes going, so that way it will be ready by the December meeting.
All right. As far as discussing it, I guess that's wasting time, or not wasted, I guess, but taking time at the board meeting versus doing it in person and questions after the board meeting.
Either way, however you want to do it. Like I said, if there's something that hopped out at you that you want to discuss, we can discuss it.
I brought up some points earlier, so I still have a few questions, but I can do that after the.
Okay, or tomorrow.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments?
The only thing, if I may.
Go ahead.
The only thing I would have is World Water. Have you touched base with them on doing the cost analysis?
Cost analysis, we did talk to, Gary did talk to Josh, our engineer that does rate studies and stuff, to figure out exactly what it costs us per gallon. Right now, Gary.
We're still working on it, we're close. We're real close.
That's not budget.
That's all it is, because.
That is, on the resolution to raise the rates and tap fees.
Yeah, we're gonna have a discussion on that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay.
If you would, if you hold that until later. Anybody else with any budget issues? Terry, did you have anything, or are you satisfied with the questions you had?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on, Jim.
Okay, next, sewer rat estimate, I did get with Dave Lewis. He said that the state is accepting this due to the drought because it is a water saving issue and stuff. He says that they would be able to, and would be wise for us to get it started, and instead of flushing all of our lines, this is the sonar between manhole to manhole. That to check and make sure that we do not have any blockages and that our lines are good, which he said most of our lines are half empty anyway, being out in some of the rural areas. But he said it would be best to start this program and let them do it, and then that way we can come back and really hit the lines that do need to be flushed if we need to flush them. This project here, it was $93,000. What it is it will cover 375,000 linear feet, 1,500 manholes. With that, they do manhole inventory. Also, if there's any difficult manholes, they'll deal with them, which is, they have estimated 100 of them, and they said that they would probably have it done in 25 days.
Questions from board?
Yeah, I've got a quick
Go
question.
ahead, Paul.
You said due to the drought.
Due to the
But-
water issues that are going on, like in the western slope and
So
stuff.
is this a substandard way of doing this stuff?
No.
That they're allowing to happen just because of the drought?
No, it's just because it costs you a gallon of water for every foot of sewer line that you flush. So you figure you have 72 miles of sewer line, you know, take that by feet, which is 370,000 linear feet. By a gallon of water, you're losing a half a million gallons of water. So they're trying to be water conscious at the same time, as, you know, because water's valuable.
Okay.
So, Jim, to actually flush the lines would cost how much per foot?
Shoot, we figured, what was it, just a third of the city was gonna be almost $60,000.
Okay. And, they're going to inventory, manholes, inventory the lines basically,
Mhm.
for the $8,000. That, I presume, they're going to, are they going to give us a
Yes.
a map to put into our, will that
It
fit
will
into our
overlap our
IMGIS?
IMGS, yes.
Okay.
So it will be, GIS right to our map. Where right now, when Donnie was doing it, he was kind of estimating where they were at. This one will give him a true reading as to where it is on the map. It's, the GPS.
And the next question is, how are we gonna pay for it?
Well, we did put in 60,000 this year for, project, but also we have shown an increase in our revenue that it should cover it.
Do we have
Well,
money to pay
we
for
need
it?
to calculate the debt ratio, how that's gonna impact our debt ratio. And then, right now, I'm projecting in sewer that we're gonna have a surplus of 153,000. But then, you take depreciation and we'll probably be over budget.
That's without depreciation?
That's without depreciation.
Well, yeah, because depreciation's gonna swallow all that up.
Sewer. So, if that project gets done this year, but it's not capital, so.
Yeah, using capital, that's what we're done. We can't consider capital.
Do we have to pay for it all at once? Will they spread it out?
It don't matter if it's done this year, it will go into this year. Even though if they take the payments next year, it's still going to be considered as part of this year.
Will they break it up into two pieces or anything? What, do they?
Yeah, they would. We've talked about that. And they said, yeah, we can pay for half this year and half next year. That's not an issue.
Questions?
It needs to be done. I mean, it needs to be done, but I think if they pay for half this year and half next year, I think.
We did put it in for next year's budget as doing something with this.
So it'd basically be 45 this year and 45 next year. But it takes all of our reserve, all but 15 of it. So if something else happens this year,
So, and I mean, that 153,000 is a projection, and so we still have, well, I don't know if something else happens yet, it's not included in it. Or if I haven't seen POs, then that number's not right.
Well, we are,
Jetting was budgeted for this year, and none of it's been done.
we are liable for fines if we don't get this done.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, next I have, you don't have anything there. We do have a truck, a used truck. We have $15,000 in the budget when we started at the beginning of the year, because we knew we were gonna need a truck. Well, we got one truck up and running and got it, while the other truck ended up blowing the engine in it. So I had Josh looking around to see if he could find us a truck. We did find a truck for about 13, that would have been just perfect, kind of perfect for our needs. Wasn't the best of shape, but we have kids that are driving our vehicles when they're mowing, and it would have been better than giving them a new truck. So, but by the time we got to the point of saying, yeah, we want it, we gotta wait for the board to vote on it, they'd already sold it. So, what I'm coming to the board and asking is saying, hey, I have 15,000 allotted from the budget to buy a used truck if we need to. If we can find something out there that would be perfect for us or manageable for us, would the board be willing to say, hey, we'll give you up to a $15,000 limit to find a truck if you can find one in the next couple of months?
Comments, questions?
I think it's okay.
That's a good idea. You're just gonna keep some stuff.
Okay, so can we have a negotiation where if you get the playground down in Applewood, we'll let you
No.
have a truck?
No. No. Well, we didn't have that, don't worry, it's just, do that. We're really close.
Questions, comments? Come on, somebody's,
I think it's a good idea, because I think we shouldn't really be micromanaging a truck, to be honest with you. I think these guys can probably figure that out themselves, figure out what's a good deal and what's not a good deal in purchasing.
Yvonne, do we have the money?
Yeah. we do.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, the next, we have water rates and DOLA fees discussion. Water rates, I know Gary and I have looked at it and we're still working on it. The last figure Gary came up with was, he was saying it's 0.0041 and we're at 0.0043 at the present time. I did put in there just for informational as to if we raise the taps on this sheet, if you look at the old fees, this is clear section 4. The old fees are the ones above kind of the lettering there, and then for water charges for like single family, it has, this would be the new fee with the 15% would be a 0.00503, where the old was 0.00438. So you're looking at per gallon, 1,000 gallons, you're looking at a 7 cent increase, or not even a 7 cent. It's 7/10 of a cent increase at a 15% increase, which we will have public hearing on November 22nd to do this. I know the next meeting, hopefully we can pull the figures real close to tell you exactly, because when you do speculation on next year, you know, it's like, how many greenhouses are you gonna have? How many gallons per household you're gonna be using per day to get all these numbers? Well, once you start raising the rates, the uses of gallons sometimes drops too. So that's where it's tricky to pull all the numbers to come up with a finite number as to exactly what your price is gonna be per gallon. Because you still have all the other infrastructure, you have that plant running all the time, it don't matter. Even though you're producing water, if you're not selling it, it's.
Well, yeah,
you
because we've gotta
different
come out.
expenses.
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so you gotta figure all that in though,
Mhm.
to your cost per gallon.
Yeah.
Okay, what we're selling, because if we're figuring it in on the cost per gallon on the water that we're flushing, okay, you guys gotta add that stuff back in,
Yes.
into your actual costs. And if you guys aren't doing that, then we're not gonna come up with the correct number.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I ran across was, I took the number of produced water, but yeah, wait a minute, I need to have also the number of the water that we flushed for back flushing and all of that, and our neutralization and all of that we needed to add into it. When we started looking at it, we're like, oh, shoot, we forgot that. Well,
So you're still working on that with Gary?
Gary's been working on it with the engineer. I did ask him to show me everything when they're done, because I wanna go over it. But the other thing though, that I have talked to World Water about this, they do this stuff.
do that.
You know, and that's something that they'll do for us for
Who
free.
would you talk to?
I talked to the what's his name?
Ralph?
Was it Ralph?
George, straight.
I think it was George.
George Strait. I thought he was a senior.
Oh, baby.
I don't know his last name, but I think it was George that I spoke to, and they do that.
Okay, I'll get a hold of him too.
Yeah.
Get him involved, see if Arnold will catch up with his and see how we can work it.
So.
Cause that's one of the things I wanna make sure that I'm doing it, not just relying on something too, cause that I get formula.
Yeah, because if they've been doing this stuff before, then they're gonna know all the areas to look into.
Yeah.
Because it'd be real easy to forget an area or two.
Yeah,
So shouldn't you also include, in the cost of the water, the cost of maintaining an upgraded system? Upgrading and maintaining
well, it is.
an upgraded system.
You want, that's all of that infrastructure and stuff, that's your capital, that's setting out there.
Which would be considerably above that 0.0041.
Yeah.
Questions?
Cause I know, looking back, in the last water survey they had was in 2011 or 9.
9, 11, something like that.
They were recommending like a 10% to 15% increase every year, which they never did. This rate has been this way since then. So that's one of the reasons, after talking to the revolving fund for our DAF system, today they were just happy. You could ask, Giovanni had a smile on her face because we had this meeting 2 years ago, and they just kind of looked at us and went, really? And today the finance guys said, you guys have turned this place around in 2 years. And you guys are doing what needs to be to get the grants and be where you need to be. So, or if we need to borrow the money, we're capable of doing it.
So for action issues tonight then,
Mhm.
we're talking about an action on TAP P, but not action on water rates.
Yeah, you're not talking about water rates tonight. That is going to be November 22nd.
By then, we need to be able to have,
Figures to where you and water are comfortable with it, which we have a meeting in between now and then too.
and have recommended rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Which that's gonna change our budget if we go higher or lower or whatever. It will still be figured out.
We're going to have we're proposed to have a public forum on November
22nd.
22nd. That would be a good thing to talk to the public about in that forum.
We have, like I said, we'll have rate changes for water, and some rate changes and fees for golf course. We're going up on them too. Okay?
Go ahead.
Before we get into CCAC, I'd like to introduce these gentlemen. These guys came down, the DAF system. They'll be working with Josh in helping to design and engineer it for this loan through the revolving fund. Like I said, right now we were looking at $4 million being the cost of this project, which it might be a little more by the time we get through. They are offering us a $300,000 grant for design and engineering for part of it, and also another $10,000 that we could get through DOLA. But this is where, after the meeting, I know Josh was busy, we weren't able to get, we got to get a kind of a build out as to exactly what we're going to do. When we discussed it in the meeting, we talked about the DAF with the charcoal filters to help eliminate the smell and refine a little bit more, which will save our filters, which will only be having to back flush our filters maybe once a day instead of every 30 minutes, because this will help eliminate a lot of that stuff that's coming through our water. We looked at, with this, we're looking at radiant or nuclei, as Gary would say it, because of the radiant in our wells and stuff, and when we do have to pump our wells to keep that level. And this would come to mind was just with the dual well. If we got it up and running, and okay, can we put it in the lake and be able to remove a lot of that nuclei? How can we do it? So I got to get with Josh now and Gary, and we're going to sit down and talk about what do we want to go for. It's like I told them, I said, you know, with the regulations being the way they are, every year you guys are getting tighter and tighter with regulations. Right now, with our lake being at 3.8, which is a little over half of what the regulations is at 5, you know, how soon are they gonna drop that down to 4 and then pretty soon to 3? Is this gonna be something in 5 or 10 years that we're gonna have to be looking at again to say, hey, you know, we need this to do it, or can we do it all in one shot? So that's one of the discussions we're gonna have with Josh, and see if it's gonna be an extra cost or how we can go about it. So that's part of that. But wanna introduce yourself, guys?
Sure. My name's Jason Morgan. I'm with the Coombs Hopkins Company. I'm a manufacturer's rep out of the Denver area, and so we're kind of the boots on the ground for companies like AWC who aren't solo quarter, don't have somebody in every state. So I'm kind of a generalist when it comes to, these are my 35 manufacturers, here's this process that fits this need, and then we bring in the experts to really help fine tune and support the project. So we work hand in hand with districts and engineers and that to come up with a solution for what you're designing around. So now let Ryan introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Harvey. My company's AWC Water Solutions. We've been building wastewater treatment plants for over 40 years now. We've done over 600 plants across North America, and the majority, we're based in Langley, up right near Vancouver in Canada, but the significant majority of our business is in the United States.
Are you guys open, or do you have a presentation, or are you open to questions?
Open to questions, certainly. I did have a few slides that I could go through as well, but I don't think,
that was
it's
kind
not
of,
quite.
we didn't know exactly whether they'd be here tonight, so that's why.
Probably most appropriate would be questions if anybody has any.
AWC is the pilot test that we did do, and it came out positive that this would eliminate probably 80% of our problems.
So Rob, you are the DAF, you were involved with the DAF pilot test we did.
To a degree, yeah. So I worked with Josh on just making sure that DAF had everything ready to go that you guys required and everything. But I wasn't physically present at the time. But
so in my looking at different DAF systems, it looks like the DAF is quite often used for wastewater. Very predominantly.
Very often used for both, actually.
It's
for both.
In my world, I see it more on the drinking water side. In the wastewater side, it is used quite a bit as a clarification step as well, but that's usually after the biological process takes place. But it definitely, I see conventional clarification on wastewater more so than on the drinking water side. There are many pre-treatment options on the drinking water side. Really what the benefit in my mind why a DAF fits this application is footprint being one of them. If you were to compare that to say like the traditional flock set plates that were probably what, the 10th the footprint?
Yeah, but anywhere from 4th to a 10th.
Yeah, depending on, because there's other options on that side as well. Removal, polymer dosage, there's a bunch of other things that go into it, but nowadays it seems like total overall footprint is a bigger driver than other things, right? So when I moved to Colorado in 2015, I think in the water and wastewater world, a cubic yard of concrete was $500 to $600 depending on location. Now we're seeing 12 to 1500. So if you can reduce that, that's a significant cost of a project, right?
So also, in looking at DAF systems, it looks like there's probably hundreds of used ones out there and ones that are used temporarily and for rent, for lease, whatever, to put into systems that range greatly in cost.
Right.
Is it worthwhile to consider one of those systems rather than a new one?
So I haven't looked at the used market at all. A lot of the times when I see that type of market, it's coming from like the oil and gas industry, and it's usually stuff that hasn't been maintained all that well. The other side of things is what manufacturer did it come from and how are we going to support that going forward. There's a piece of equipment doesn't exist out there that will never need maintenance or parts. The better built ones are going to need a lot fewer of them. And so, for example, AWC bought the rights to use Leopold's DAF. That probably comes more into play on the really large DAF systems. AWC has been doing DAFs forever, but Leopold in the U.S. market, if it was a large system, it was not Leopold. Leopold, over the years, went through a series of not being Leopold. They were bought by ITT. Now they go under a company called Xylem, and as a bigger and bigger company gobbles up the smaller ones, that cost of overhead also shoots through the roof as well, right? So part of what happened between their patents running out and then them being gobbled up over the years is they decided to sell that off. So between the two companies, you won't find another company with as much experience. So it's, the pilot is a very basic version of what they would do. It's still manually operated with valves and manual adjustments. The full-scale things are fully automated, but sludge collection is huge between different manufacturers and what type is going to have more maintenance versus another. And so, we like to see something as a total, net present value evaluation. We may not end up being the cheapest. We'll be competitive. We may not be the cheapest, but if you could save 15% now and spend 80% over 20 years more, that decision doesn't usually make a lot of sense, right? So.
One of the things that, after looking at the plate and DAF system and stuff, it would be less maintenance for us, especially for our crew, as to handling it, whereas the plate system would take a lot more employee time for cleaning and stuff, where on a DAF system, they just go in and spray it down for a half hour every morning and every evening, and that's what you're done.
That's right. And the DAF will also produce less waste solids as well, less volume of waste.
Because it comes off the DAP much thicker than it would off of a lot of the other, whether it's gravity filtration or, sedimentation versus plates versus, they use less polymer. Sometimes no polymer at all. So there's, and we do have a pretty decent install base in Colorado. Love for you guys to call references and see. We get at the end of the day we're selling them, right? So call people who run them, and there's a bunch that have been installed for decades, and they can speak to how little maintenance is involved in that type of stuff on a day-to-day operation.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Questions?
Just one.
Go ahead.
Do you have those references,
No, I'll get them from you.
please?
Yeah, we'll put some together.
Thank you.
Of course.
Are there any type of warranties or like a guarantee if something goes wrong quickly that?
Yeah, so there's a performance guarantee that understanding once we fully understand the water quality, we can be aware, and especially, we haven't actually reviewed the piloting data yet, but when we get a chance to do that, we can be very, certain of what the produced water quality will look like, so we can guarantee that. And then warranty, yeah, we, standard manufacturer warranty in the industry is, it's 12 months from startup, I think, or 18 months from
shipping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so fairly standard warranty. Yeah.
All right, thanks, gentlemen.
All right.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, next, CCAAC enforcement discussion, small claims court, and costs.
Well, I guess
That's you.
that's my turn, right? You have in front of you, you should have a email to and from Sheriff to Sarah. There's some discussions as to what our next action should be. The number of things. I think for our third action, or fourth action, after the third action, we have the options to have go to the attorney or do it ourselves. And I noticed in our financial report we have some significant attorney's fees for CCAAC. We're going to have to be careful of that. So, small claims, if we can have talking to the attorney, she was a little bit, I think, this guy maybe is where we could actually file small claims, and we can file small claims suit, and we can do 2 a month, 18 a year. $33, 33 for $750 less, and 55 for the next step, 7,500. I suggest that we do that, because as an action item, we probably will need to authorize the CC somebody, to actually go through the process of filing a claim. I have suggested when we get to that, I have suggested a couple, the first 2 that we would do if we decide to do that. So, any questions on that?
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, so you're recommending that we go ahead and do the small claims court and just have somebody from the CCACC represent the district at that small claims court?
Correct.
And not hiring a lawyer?
For small claims, that's correct. Now, I would prefer to actually have an attorney do it, but I don't think that, if we're gonna do that, then we're gonna file civil claim. In a district court.
What's the power of the small claims court? What authority do they have as far as, if they rule in our favor, what do we have?
The same thing we would have in any jurisdiction. The judge can rule whatever we decide or not, which would have the same authority as if it were in a district court.
In a district court.
What we would ask, and in both of these cases, what we would ask, it's not monetary damages as much as it's just performance.
Anything that eliminates lawyer fees on the board.
With the small claims, what's the maximum you can be awarded?
There's up to 750, and then 750 to 7,500, and then 7,500 to 25 grand. Once it jumps over 25 grand, then it goes to 7,500. Once it jumps over 7,500, maybe it is, it has to go to the district. The 7,500 is the maximum dollar figure, I think, that you can get small claims. But we don't have dollar damages.
No.
So we just have performance damages.
And so one more question then. So even with the judge's order, we don't have the actual authority to do that as a fine. It would be a lien against their place.
Not a lien. We would have, the judge would rule if, depending on what we asked for, the judge would rule for that for the defendant to perform, in other words, correct the problem, move the storage container, whatever, to move that. If they didn't, then we would go back to the court in whatever time when the judge decided and file a report that was not done. Then the judge could at that point direct the sheriff to see to it that this happens. And at a point on down the road, yes, then it can become a lien or a sheriff action.
Okay. So there's some teeth behind it is what I'm getting at.
Pardon me?
There's some teeth behind it.
There can be, yes.
Okay.
And you can recoup your costs for the mailings and certified letters and any fees for the court through that process.
The downside to all this is not using an attorney to just file suit, is the pain in the neck of doing it. Somebody has to do it. So if we were to decide to do that, I would be asking for help.
Yeah, I want to get a volunteer out, because we could get a volunteer out of the community, couldn't we?
Yes. We can authorize, it has to be, authorized, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Questions? Okay, next one.
CCAC review.
No, this one we have, I still have more on this one.
Okay.
Squatter removal, trespass removal. I did talk to Sheriff Lucero. We are going to become kind of active again in the roundtable that they have in Pueblo County. And so I think that he's making an effort. You have the emails that I sent and received. He's suggesting that we use a third-degree trespass summons and squatter removal. And his question in both of these is, it has to be done by the property owner. Well, we are the property owner in that case, in most cases. We can actually help a property owner that's not us by just assist them with going through this process. But in cases where we are the property owner, then we can file the claim for trespass or squatter removal. And I think restraining order, we could get down into those kinds of issues, but that gets pretty complicated. So probably what I'm going to ask for is, in action, is to be authorized, or I don't know if I need to actually, but I just formalize it, probably need to be, I'll ask for authorization to institute trespass issues. Questions?
And this is on the green belt, right?
If it's on the green belt,
Yeah.
that's correct.
I did find, when Terry and I were meeting with Sheriff Taylor, I did find one of the documents of the return of what the county attorney said on some of this stuff for trespassing and litter and stuff, and I put it in your box.
Okay.
With the CCAC.
Okay. I think Sheriff Lucero, I think, is actually trying he's trying to help.
And he was part of the roundtable.
Roundtable.
Jerry
Yeah, he
were
was
involved in it.
under sheriff at that time.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's what I had.
That's it? Okay, next we have CCAC review. Look at review, you have 6265 Wakeland Mish. It's a garage. And this grade that one, you'll have to say. 4375 Mustang Drive. That is a house. That one you can go up. We have, one first letter, 2 second letters, and then 2 small claim cases filed this side go in.
Okay, so the point has been brought up to me that if the board does not actually peruse each of these items, then that is de facto allowing the CCAAC to make a decision. So we need to be, I need to caution the board members that we need to consider each of these individually. Now, we can vote for them as a group, but we definitely, we all ought to consider each one individually and ask questions if there are any. On your spreadsheet there, I have the highlighted in just a light shading is the two, no, there's a light shading with the 000s. Those are the first letters and second letters. And then the ones that are red are suggested small claims. The theory behind the small claims is we're gonna learn, it's gonna be a learning curve. We need to learn how to do this, and we need to do it. We can't lose this momentum, so we need to continue on, continue forward. And I picked those two mainly because they are pretty obvious. And I think that we can, maybe more easily
Learn the process.
go through the process. Yeah.
Learn the process.
Any questions?
Yes, I got one for you. So, so it is definitely going to be a learning experience for whoever decides to take this on. We probably ought to make sure that we're letting the person that volunteers for this, making sure that we allow somebody to volunteer for it, but making sure that they got the time to do this. Because I think it would be irresponsible for us to allow a volunteer to jump on this that doesn't have the time. Because this is gonna take,
It takes some time.
I mean, I was involved in a small claims court case once when I was younger. That's not quite as easy as people see on television. So this will take a little bit of time. I yield.
Questions? Okay, nothing from the gallery here, so I guess I'll close the study session and open the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of College City Metropolitan District, Tuesday, October 25th at 6:44. Join in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you join the moment of silent reflection, if you so choose. Thank you, everybody. Quorum check. Let the minutes show that we have a full quorum, all board members present. Could I get an approval of the agenda?
I have a couple things. I did forget the public hearing minutes for, hold them up real quick. Public hearing for the 11th, October 11th.
You forgot to put them on this or?
Yeah, on the sheet.
Okay.
So you have a public hearing of October 11th, 2022, regular meeting minutes for October 11th, 2022, and then you had October 6th CCA minutes and October 20th. I know there was a meeting that was not out there.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes with the
Approve the agenda.
approve the agenda with the additions that the district manager mentioned.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. Okay, now we don't have anything in for a public hearing, but we need to have a public hearing for the tap fees, I guess. And North Range. And close the regular meeting and open a public hearing for October 25th, 2022.
Is this one for the tap fees or for the moratorium?
We're gonna have to do them both. Can we do them both all at once?
Yeah, you can do both at once, because then you can divide it out as two.
Okay, so what is the proposal?
Action. The proposal was to raise the tap fees to $2,100.
20,000.
Or 20,000 with 11,000 going to, come on, I was trying to do it.
That's all right.
Where the water would be 11,000 and sewer tap would be 9,000. That's the new rate.
All right, let's do that one first. We can then we can do that. So,
There was also a proposal that you brought up too, in that you go by square footage and that, square footage of the house to decide. I think that would be a bookkeeping mess, but.
if we were to do that, if we were to go by square footage, we could follow, there's a number of places that we could actually copy from to do that. So, input from the board.
Our rate right now is what, 18,000?
18.5. Or no,
16.5.
16.5. With this money could be capital, which can be used for these projects that we're doing, whether it be the dam, the DAP program, in using that towards that. That was one of the things that was mentioned today in our meeting with pre-qualification. They said that the tap fees, they were happy with what we've done with them so far. We told them we're probably gonna move up more. It all depends upon what the board's decision would be. And they were said, yeah, you can actually cover your loans a lot better with the tap fees.
So I'm going to kind of limit the board real quick. We've discussed this quite a little already. So basically, I think I'm asking for or against it, and then we'll open up to the audience. You're approved.
I'm for it.
Any more comments?
I'm for it simply because I want to keep it simple. I want the money for capital projects.
You're for just the flat fee?
And I'm for a flat fee. Yeah.
For the flat fee.
Terry?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. What about the audience? Anybody have any input in the audience as far as, this is a public hearing. You can speak as long as it's not for hours and hours.
I agree with the increase.
You agree?
I agree.
It should be higher, I believe, but that's my opinion. We don't have any more water anywhere,
So,
so.
point well taken. I guess one of my concerns actually is that we don't want to be coming back here in 6 months and trying to do it again.
Why not?
Because the public's gonna shoot us.
They haven't yet.
Nice, huh?
Besides that, I could shoot back, so.
Not great.
A lot of us can.
You can arm all of us.
Oh,
I don't think.
okay, that's a good point.
What was the point you wanted?
Right here. I'll put a target on.
I also agree with the higher cost.
I mean, but if we're gonna cap it at 20, then that's a cap, but I do agree that we could go even higher.
My own concern is, I mean, people are hurting right now. Of course, it's a tap, they're building a new house, so really, people are existing now, I mean, it's not affecting them, so I guess it's just new builders.
That cost is rolled into the cost of the house.
Yep.
So, all those fees are a monthly payment.
So I just got a quick comment.
So, as an information, I think, is that we don't have a resolution right now in place that we're going to vote on. So right now, we're talking about coming up with the numbers to create a resolution. So we still can go at a different number if we want to. Go ahead.
So the reason why I went with 20 grand is because our competitor, for lack of a better word, is Pueblo West. And they're 20 grand. So I didn't figure we should be higher. I definitely don't think we should be lower. Now, if we want to revisit this later on.
Why not be higher?
Well, because, so market forces, first of all, the grant money is a big deal, I think, or, sorry, not the grant money. The tap fees that we get are going to be a big deal towards us getting grant money, okay? If we go higher than Pueblo West, because we've already got some disadvantages that Pueblo West has, that builders are gonna look there. They've got a lot better shopping than we have. They have more paved roads than we have. Now, we got a lot better view than they got. But I don't think at this time we should be higher. Now, revisit it in 6 months. You know, if we want to, then that's up to the board. But I personally think 20 grand, we're right there with our competitor, for lack of a better term, and that's it.
And we're 16.5 now.
We're 16.5 right now.
You have a river rolling through Pueblo West at all times. We're up to Mother Nature, whatever she leaves behind in snow. So that's a big difference there.
That river running through Pueblo West is also fed by snow.
Yes, but it never stops. Our ditch has.
Well, that water goes to Colorado Springs though too.
It
They're only
does.
allowed to take so much out.
We did, within our budget, we did figure an economic slowdown. Normally, we put 13 to 15 houses in the budget as tap fees and stuff that way. This year, we dropped it down to 9, just because of interest rates, and we don't know whether the market's going to come to a slowdown. So, we put that in as a safety in our budget.
Conservative.
Yeah, conservative.
Okay, any more comments from? Okay,
So, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
you seem to be advocating higher. What number do you have?
No, not really. I think I still like the square footage, which would end up being, probably would get us more money, but would not be across the board higher. I think we would see a larger increase in the square footage simply because of the size of houses. But maybe not. So I'm not necessarily. I do think that the economic situation, we need to consider that, is that we don't want to become stagnant. And
Become what?
stagnant. And to Sarah's point about many communities gradually raising their rates, we can come back and do it again if we need to. Anything else?
Do you want to go into the moratorium side of this now?
Yes.
Okay, I do have communication from one that says, "Dear City Manager, Board, Members, congratulations on the start of our water infrastructure repair project. Thank you for securing funding and making this happen. I will not be able to attend the public meeting on October 25th, so I would like to submit the following comment as a homeowner and former water quality specialist. No matter how deep you make Lake Beckwith or increase water storage capacity elsewhere, the mountain in our watershed can only supply a finite amount of water to our community. I urge you to pass a permanent moratorium on new water hookups and permanently ban new residential building permits. Our watershed cannot support suburban residential housing development. If new building continues, we are all going to pay the consequences and it will be grim. Thank you for your opportunity to provide a written public comment. This was from Marcy Henning.
Thank you.
Marcia Henning.
As I understood that she wants a permanent moratorium. Okay.
Does Pueblo West now have a moratorium on taps, or did they lift it?
I'm pretty sure they have a moratorium for so many this year, and then it's like a draw for next year. I can't remember. I read it. It was like we have 10 this year, and then next year is going to be like 15 for the whole year. And I don't know whether it was a draw or first come, first served, first one that had money up front. I don't know.
Their original moratorium was a draw. I don't know
Yeah, they've changed it.
I'm thinking, I remember years since I've been on the board, that some years we only had 2 or 3 houses built, period. And in the last few months, years, we've had quite a few. I wouldn't be opposed to having a moratorium with a number of per year, to slow things down a little bit until get our dam on to where it needs to be.
So one part of the public hearing is, and we are going to have an action on a moratorium for the rest of this year. I think that we need to start the conversation. We do have a proposal on the books from Mr. Krause. This hearing is to decide on whether to have a moratorium for the rest of 2022 or not. So that's, and that would, I think that Mr. Krause's thoughts there, that would start the discussion. So then we have time to think about how we are going to move forward with it.
That's a good comment, Mr. Krause.
Audience input? What do you think about having a moratorium for the rest of 2022? Does that make sense?
I think we should. But if you have a moratorium, that is going to affect the tap fee, the amount of money that we make on a tap fee. So, I mean, if you're going to have a moratorium, I think you should have a higher tap fee then to make up for that difference.
May I respond? Just from what Jim said, they only have 9 houses budgeted in for the entire year next year. So if we continue a number into next year, it's going to be higher than 9 as far as the tap. Now and I know I'm the one who made the proposal, but I was, when Gary said, the tap fees just rolled into the loan, that's true, but it still affects ratios. So the tap fee itself will have some effect on how many people decide to build. And I think if we pass the moratorium for, it's barely 2 months. That gives us a chance to continue the conversation and come up with a reasonably, I don't wanna stop growth, I wanna control growth somewhat until the infrastructure is, if not completed, near completion. And certainly, it would seem to me reasonable that we approve at least one house a month or something, which would go over the budget and not make that a negative. But I don't know that one is the correct number. I mean, if by December 31st, Jim has grants in place for the work, that will affect the number, or if we have a moratorium at all. But if we're still struggling to find the money, because we could make the water rates 100 times what they are now and not pay for the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention the fact that everybody leaves, or nobody ever comes. But so, to me, I'm almost, just kind of thinking on the fly here, which is always dangerous, because it has to do a lot with how much sugar I've had lately. But I'm not sure the tap fee is high enough, with the idea that in a very short period of time, the financing is in place for the change, the phase one, and is a 1 and 2, whatever it is. I lose track of what phase is what. And maybe the tap fee should be 24,000 or 25,000 or 30,000 or 20,000, and I see the moratorium. I am not trying to stop growth here. I see the moratorium as a short-term measure, because I've lived in too many places, or lived near too many places, where the community grew faster than the infrastructure, and it was a nightmare. And all I'm proposing, I want to make really clear that if I knew who ran the newspaper, I'd put it in there every week. I want people to know I'm not trying to stop growth. I'm trying to slow growth up till we can handle it. I disagree with that letter. I think we have all the water in the world once we have the infrastructure in place to store it. And so I think that the moratorium, and perhaps even an increased tap fee, I'm not sure about that yet, I haven't thought about that very long, works toward that end. I want Colorado City and the Rye, Colorado City area to grow. I want it to be a measured growth when we're ready for it. Because if the growth precedes the preparation for it, everybody suffers. If the preparation and the growth happen simultaneously, we should all benefit.
Input? That was input, thank you.
You're welcome.
So what's the next step?
We got action.
We move on to, the next step. Is that close?
Unless you wanna discuss how many you wanna, how many you would be looking at as for the moratorium.
Well, the first one, this specific public hearing is for the short-term moratorium.
just the short-term
And then
moratorium.
during that, we'll have to, because after that, we will have to come up with how many you're going to allow,
January
whether
1.
we're going to or not. But this one is specifically for the next 2 months. And along that line, of course, is that while we're in the public hearing, is, when we come up for the tap fees, we are going to have to vote on a number.
Or we say moratorium is over. we don't have to vote, the number we can vote on is totally free market.
For tap fees.
Oh, not tap fees, I'm sorry.
But if
Okay,
we-
but we can, so I think that we can close the public hearing.
Yeah, just real quick, then before we close it, I just wanted to make the comment that, I got no problem 2 months from now or 6 months from now, if we warranted as a board, coming back and raising tap fees again. I just think we should take it in increments first.
And that was
I don't
kind of-
think we should get crazy here all at once and raise them to 30 grand.
To some point, okay,
It should probably be something that's discussed every year.
Yeah.
okay. Board input? Public input? I close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting for the board of directors.
Okay, approval of minutes. Like I said, you have approval of public hearing for October 11th, regular meeting of October 11th, and CCAAC minutes for October 6th and the 20th.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 11th, the public hearing minutes of October 11th, and the CCAAC minutes of October 6th and October 20th, 2022.
Moved and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Okay, next you have bills payable. This is the second round of bills.
I make a motion that we approve the bills as presented. And you notice there's a big one in there for the auditor in those bills, if you look down.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second, any discussion? I have a question, I guess, about the attorney's fees, $2,500 for the CCAAC.
Yes,
That's kind of worrisome.
it is.
Yeah, it's big.
Was that, what was that? Was it me talking to him? And I guess probably the,
Covenants, or the covenants lawyer. It's broke down. She wants to see the bill.
when I talked, maybe outside, because we're going to pay bills, I need to find out. Now, I didn't talk for that long. But that,
They got a minimum billing charge
when
usually.
she probably went and had coffee and started doing some research.
You'd be amazed.
Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's pay the bills.
Okay, next, you have financials in there. So your red section. Overall, for net income, we're a lot better than last year. Water, what was it? Let's see, I should have kept them in separate pages. For sewer, we're up 100,000. For water, we're almost up 100,000. It's smaller, but at least we're not in black like we did last year.
Water's at, 202,470, and sewer we're up
No, sewer was,
193,000.
You guys do different math. I'm seeing the water's up about $300,000 and sewer's up $93,000.
It's that special government math.
the water sides, we had more capital improvements in there. The 394,000 is capital improvements, whereas the last year we only had 279,000 capital improvements. So we're growing all the way around, plus still keeping ahead.
And is probably going to improve. So any kind of capital project that we do not finish by the end of the year, we have to move out of capital into construction in progress, which it will hit next year, not this year. So that number will probably be looking better.
Now, is part of that because of timing? What would you attribute that to?
The change for it to improve. So when we route our POs, we have to make sure that we code them correctly. So if we have the dam project, if we paid any of those bills, they need to go to a capital, or I'm sorry, construction in progress account instead of a capital account.
Okay, that would make a difference.
Yeah. Just to hit capital, you have to make sure the project is, all your parts are here, the project's completed, and it's in service being used. That's what meets capital to be processed in that year.
So but the revenues for the water, the 1.3 versus the 0.9, or basically 1, that's a significant difference. And that can't be because of higher water, that much higher water use. Is that because of timing of collecting that?
A lot of it is finding those anomalies, dials that Ron searched
Charging
into,
correctly?
that were
Yes,
charging
now we
correctly.
are.
Yeah, but that's,
And then also you have new meters in 80% of your,
That, the new meter perception.
but that's still $274,000. That we're talking difference here.
last year
Last year?
you forgave $70,000
$300,000.
when we found that,
What we found that.
the billing there.
Expenses are down almost $80,000.
Well, but just simply the revenues. The revenue is 1.3 versus 0.988. That's 400,000.
Which usually at the end of the year too is our expense side. Gary will order chemicals to last us until May.
But I'm talking about collection, revenue.
You're talking about revenue.
Yeah, so
Why
$3
is there,
million one.
why is there $400,000 difference in revenue?
So we have that grant at $132,000, which last year we did not have that. We only had $3,500.
Okay.
And then the difference between last year and this year is probably around $70,000 on fees bill. So that's almost a couple $100,000. And insurance proceeds is another $141,000 that we didn't have last year.
Oh, that's for the insurance for the,
The
Filters.
emergency claim, the water emergency claim.
Okay.
gotcha.
Other questions? Can I get a motion to approve the finance?
That's just a financial report.
I don't know. How about we go to the next one?
Okay, operational report. Over the last 2 weeks, I have been working with Mr. Perry. I also have attended the Arkansas Valley Roundtable. I will be meeting Zoom then on tomorrow. They will be doing their need analysis assessment. I put in for a $200,000 grant for design and engineering from them, because they will do a 50-50 match. I have also talked to Allison on that, and they will do a 45-50. And the other thing that I was looking at is going into DOLA to see if we can finish it out for the $400,000. After talking today, I know I could probably get 10, so that would make it down to probably a $10,000 cost to us if we get all these things in place between all the grants. Yes, the USDA will, if you read through the string of emails from Mark Perry, he wanted a timeline and stuff, which I put that in. You have a letter to Mr. Kevin Ryan, state engineer, and Mr. Mark Perry, dam inspector. This is in relation to the dam safety compliance plan. He has read the plan. He is looking at lifting the leaving the 1 foot, lifting it to 2.5, just because the way the grants are going, and right now I don't have the feasibility study completed yet, which I need that to turn into CWCB to finish the application for the loan on its side. There is loan forgiveness on the CWCB side too, whereas USDA, we're looking at the 75-25 there. So we're trying to play everything together. Hopefully, trying to play $3.4 million from each one of them. That would give us close to our $10 million. And then hopefully with the trail, we can throw that in to finish up, because I know Draper had put in for a new trail around there since they were moving the dam and stuff, so maybe that could come through GOCO grant for a trail. But we're in that process. We're looking at timeline probably 2025 to be complete, if everything falls within this timeline, as to getting the money and moving forward. The readings, I've been sending them weekly to you guys. We did
What's that?
your readings, the barometer? Piezometer, I always get it wrong. Last week on the 20th, the P1-2 had 21 feet, 0.8, and it was dry. P3 is voided. P4 had 21.2 before we hit water. P11 had 13.8. P5 had 20.7. P6 was 26.1. And P12 was 23.4. The lake level was at 12 feet, 8 inches. Your measurements in your 4-inch was dry, 6-inch, 1 minute. You had 200 milliliters. The seep was dry, the pit was dry, and the weir had 0.14 in it. That's for that week of 2019-2020. For the week before that, we had, for October 5th, the lake was at 13 feet, 4-inch it was dry, 6-inch had, in 1 minute was 0.25 of a gallon. Seep was dry, weir had 0.14, and the pit was dry.
So I guess a question I probably for Greg. Is there a way that when you fill out this piezometer reading, that you could actually just continue it down the sheet to where like 10, 20, 22, and the next one would be on the same sheet, but would be below it or above it or whatever?
I guess if you want me to.
I guess what I'm saying
But
is,
when I send it to Graber, I have to send it to him. And so we don't wanna get our numbers.
no, don't worry about that. What my point here is that we don't.
These numbers, the piezometers don't change really.
So maybe if you could, if there is any kind of a change, if you could just note the change.
Yeah, I could do that.
If you could do that, maybe.
Yeah.
What we look at is when we see this, we have no clue as to whether this is
Sure.
the way it always is, or if there's any change there, or?
Yeah, I could go back to on the monthly reading, I could do that, yeah, if that's what you'd like.
I don't wanna,
I
don't wanna
mean,
make it complicated, I really don't.
no, it's, all I gotta do is pull the last month, and you'll have your top rating will be the current month, and the bottom rating would be the last month.
Last month is on top and just keep going down the list.
Yeah, but when I send it to Graber,
So we got this one.
yeah, it'll just be one reading.
Okay, I don't wanna complicate it, but it would help us if we knew if there was any kind of change.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Thanks.
I was really impressed with the reports and the emails between the city manager and all those companies. I mean, you go right through the whole timeline and there it is, and I told my wife, next year this time, if things go well, we should be working on the dam, we should be getting higher, and then 2 years from now, when I'm off the board, we should have things done for phase 1 and 2.
You should have your shovel out there.
Excuse me? I don't do manual work.
Okay. Well,
That's it for the dam report. You got community reports?
Mr. Hochstetler, what, are you prepared for the newsletter coming up?
Yes, I'm working on that, and I'm gonna sit with the city manager, and I gotta talk to Josh,
Okay.
and,
As long as you're prepared for it. Okay.
we will have her done.
Okay, good. And utility manager will change? Okay.
So, not utility manager, but I should by the next meeting have Sarah about, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, gave me a name to follow up on, and I'm finally getting there. But by next meeting, I should have a report on an actual individual who's applied.
It's qualified possible.
Good.
You will be getting a letter in your bills. We were over in HA5s with all the seaweed and stuff. We're over by .001.
Oh.
HA5s, their state is at .060, and it came back through the lab testing, which we have done flushing. We killed the seaweed. We're at that point now. Everything should be dropping down to nothing. And it was just when the lake was turning over, when they averaged all of our samples together, it brought us up to by .001 over. So there will be a public notice going out.
That, those gentlemen that were here proposing a DAP filter should help with all that.
This would help with all of that too. And just killing the, what kind of weed?
Milliful.
Milliful. It has changed,
It's helped out
Gary's,
a lot.
the intake into the plant has cleared up a bunch.
So that notice is gonna go out in the same, where Harry's newsletter is.
Yes.
Well, I think you should address that right in that one.
And mine will be on top.
And that's why I'm mentioning it now to make sure it's implanted in his mind to put it there.
I wouldn't bank on that, I'd just remind him when you see him.
Because normally I'll write a letter explaining what happens, but I think with the newsletter, we can put it into that newsletter as to where it is.
Under committee, I think that we've been kind of ignoring has been the lease committee for both the lease for grazing. That's kind of nothing happening.
We've got the lease, it's all set up. The guy has never come back and gave us an answer whether he wants to or not.
So that's just,
Yeah, so we have a lease in place if we need to.
and
down
the other lease was for the water on
Right.
Harris.
Yeah, and
That's-
I'm just pulled the file today and I ran across some old leases from the owner before this guy, so we have a record that it is our water and it is our rights.
Was,
And it is
is that active again now, we're working on that?
Yes.
Okay.
We get it in place.
We have a meeting for that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. All right. Okay, I'm gonna read the good statement. In order for the business of the board to be conducted in the most effective and expeditious manner, it is necessary that all persons present maintain a demeanor of civility toward the board, staff, and each other. Conduct that appears threatening or aggressive will not be tolerated. Shouting, speaking out of order, or the use of offensive gestures similarly are not acceptable. Such behavior shall constitute the forfeiture of the right to remain in attendance and may, as a point of order brought to the board's attention by council or any board member, including the chairperson, result in your being asked to leave the meeting by the chairperson, or, upon your refusal, being escorted out of the meeting by the proper authority.
Dennis, did you hear all of that? Dennis.
That was,
Who's proper authority?
he has it memorized by now. Who do we have?
Dennis.
Oh,
That's what I said. Did you hear this?
oh, okay, I'm sorry. I wanted to come to the board one last time before I go to Arizona for the winter and tell you that you're gonna have a reprieve from dealing with me for 5 months now. I'm gonna zoom in, and I just wanted to reiterate that I believe that you guys are doing a phenomenal job, contrary to some of the citizens' belief, but for the job that you gotta do, I think you're doing great. I really do. It may not mean anything coming from me, but I'm gonna voice my opinion, as you know.
No, it means that come from anybody.
And I hope that we continue with the ATV thing. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be here to go to the commissioner meeting with you.
He still hasn't given me a date.
Okay. And the burn pile thing.
Well, I had it set up for the 13th for Chipper. The Chipper never showed up. I do have a pile of stuff out there. I told him go ahead and just leave it. We'll come back and pick it up or chip it. But we're almost close to, we got, I think, a week left of them crushing gravel.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get something scheduled in before it snows.
All right.
And then we can burn it during
As long
snow.
as you're on top of it.
We're and that's two. Where's the third one?
Huh? I'll give you a break tonight.
Oh, the third one was that you leave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Who else do we have?
That's all I have on the board.
Come on,
Well, you're
people.
doing pretty well. Anybody have any comment?
One thing I have too is we have election next meeting. So do you want to do like we've done in the past where we start our meeting at 7? Because you'll have election in here till 7. And usually they're cleared out here by 6:45 anyway.
Can we do it next night? The 9th?
I'm just thinking of it now because I know Harry left me a message.
The 7th is
We're
fine.
gonna have a.
Just make it short.
And we don't have the workshop. The last time what we did is we didn't have the study session. We just went straight into the meeting at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we went from there.
Now, the study session is
What
45
time
minutes.
is your bedtime?
No, that's fine.
That's too much information.
Before you should set it.
You what now?
Just 7 the same day.
Oh, okay, 7, okay.
Yeah, we just gotta keep our comments short, Mr. Chairman.
I'm okay with that. I use the hammer up. I give the hammer to Christie.
Yeah.
Cause yeah, you have election and we run across this every year. And we should do something in the year.
Speaking of election.
Okay, so we're gonna have a meeting at 7 o'clock. The next meeting will be at 7 o'clock instead of 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, highlight it. I'll put it in red that we start at 7 instead of 6.
Okay. Attorney's report?
Don't have anything.
I don't either. Okay.
Agenda items, sewer rack.
Make a motion at this time that we approve the use of a sewer route.
Moved and second, discussion.
How are we gonna pay for it?
So I ran a conservative debt ratio for projections based on the end of 2022. This does not include a new hire. It puts us at 1.07, short of the 1.10. But, I mean, it's conservative, but also it doesn't include, like in October, we've spent like 10,000 in sewer that was not expected. So it's just a projection. We did talk to the auditor about an instance where we don't meet the debt ratio, and he said we will have years like that, especially if it's a compliance issue or something, like that.
But is that based on the whole $90,000 coming out?
I moved, so this, debt ratio calculation does not include depreciation. So, or capital. So when I increase our expenses, 90,000 from where we are projected to be at the end of the year, we're gonna be a little bit short.
So why can't we say pay for half of it this year and half of it next year, 45,000? I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Will that keep us in compliance?
We asked the auditor,
We'll have to give it with Sam on that.
yeah,
'cause,
just to be sure.
Yeah. Let us ask Sam on that aspect of it.
Normally, we could explain it that we've increased, tap fees. If we're gonna increase tap fees, that would help.
You'll know that in just a minute.
So, those are just some things that we can.
But you're putting in a moratorium.
It's for 2 months.
Didn't we have
That's still this year.
didn't we have jetting budgeted for this year?
No.
No.
We were
We had
supposed
the
to have
jetter.
$60,000 put aside for Dave Lewis to come in.
No, it was not in the 2022 budget.
I thought we did, but
No.
I think, we put it into capital improvements, and we didn't.
We have a need capital now,
Yeah, which we,
but it wouldn't be, jetting wouldn't be in capital.
yeah, I think we.
So basically what you're saying is that we did not have flushing budgeted.
Jetting.
Jenny,
Well, I think we
Jetting.
weren't we projected to do it in-house.
we were projecting to do it in-house. Or we've had
Still cost.
rotating employment.
We've got to do it. Any other questions?
Well, we gotta do it or we're gonna get fined.
Any other questions? Okay, let's vote. Well, Ms. Kraus, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Hunter? Mr. Hofstadter?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Let's find the money.
Let's do it.
Okay, next, agenda item, tap fees.
I make a motion at this time that we increase tap fees to $20,000, 11,000 of it going to water, and 9,000 of it going to sewer.
And second? Moved and second, discussion? We beat this up pretty bad already. Mr. Collins, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Hofstadter?
Yes.
Ms. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Chair votes no. Tap fees passed.
So we'll have a resolution for the next one.
All right, go ahead on that.
Okay, moratorium on taps.
So we need a motion before we can discuss it.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we put a moratorium on all new taps till December 31st, 2020.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second, discussion?
How many taps do we have? As far as your discussion with the auditor about the debt ratio? If we broke our our budgeted taps for this year into 12 months, what do we have per month?
One. Some months you might have two, but then you don't have a month that you don't have any. Because within this last year, we had, I think, 5 right off the bat in the spring, like in March or April. And then we had another, we didn't have very many until probably August or September. Then we got another 5, but we've had maybe 1 or 2 in between.
So, am I correct, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I continue? So, am I correct in assuming that if we amended the moratorium motion to a maximum of 1 tap in November and 1 tap in December, with a review of the moratorium at the last meeting in December, you would have your arguing points as far as the debt ratio for the expenditure
For going forward for 2023.
So, okay, so right now in water, we're at 154% of develop, well, 54% and 99% of what we projected on the water side. The debt ratio is calculated on only the sewer side, and we are not at 100%. We're at 49% and 55%.
Can you translate that into English?
Oh. So everything we projected this year, we've already met and then some.
Except on the sewer side, because we have some houses that ended up having a septic system because there was no sewers. So they just paid for a water tap and not a sewer.
But I looked at the wrong number, so we're at 109% and 104%, so we've met our projections for sewer. And that calculation, that ratio is.
So the new bill that is up for approval tonight has already paid their tap. I have one that is set to be submitted that has already paid their tap fee, and the one that you and I have been working on has not paid their tap fee yet. As far as new bills go.
So the one
in the
that-
works.
We have one coming.
So the one on Colorado hasn't been approved yet?
The one that's up for approval this evening has already paid their tap fee.
Okay, but not the one we're looking at for maybe next meeting?
That one has not paid the tap fee as of yet.
So to your point about meeting your obligations, Dawn,
It has to be in there.
does that mean that your debt ratio is figured on the budgeted amount or the what received amount?
My debt ratio is based on receipt amount projected through year end, which is, we need 1 more tap. So I projected 1 more, which.
Mr. Chairman, I would amend my motion to grandfather in the one that's already in process.
And I would second that.
Okay.
Call the question.
All of them.
Okay. Move the second, any other discussion? You called the question, all right. Let's vote. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt? Mr. Hochstetter?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. So we're going to allow 1 more.
The one that's in process.
The one that's in process.
The specific one.
Well, but your motion was 1 a month, wasn't it?
No.
Well, no, this is just.
No,
for
I
this
just
year.
asked that question.
Oh,
That's just for this year.
yeah,
Until
this year, that's what I'm
December.
talking, yeah.
We're
And the
allowing
one that's
one
already
more
in process, we had just approved.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
All right, next, Parks and Rec truck, like I said, we did have budgeted for $15,000 for a good used truck. I'd like to have the board give me permission that if we do find one, that we can move forward on it, so we don't have a situation like we did last time.
I'd make a motion at this time that we give the authority to the city manager to purchase a truck for the rec department up to and not exceeding 15 grand.
Let's go 14,999.
Okay.
Oh, man, you guys are killing me.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the 15.
Moved and seconded.
99 cents.
Any discussion? I am concerned that we are purchasing things and not completing things.
What do you mean by
Discussion.
that?
Well, I wanna see some, of course, I pick on the absolute one thing.
Oh, well, yeah,
But,
yeah. I agree with you there.
I wanna see some pressure there to get these things done.
My rationale, Mr. Chairman,
You may.
my rationale is that we already basically approved the purchase of the truck. Subject to, I mean, the board gave its consent to look for a truck up to 15,000. And all we're doing here is speeding up the process in the event that we find one, because right now, if you look for a used anything, it's gone before you can get your wallet out of your pocket.
Maybe I missed it. When did we approve to look for it?
In the budget.
During the budget.
Oh. Okay, any discussion?
The other point that Jim made that I thought was very relevant was, I would rather have had my son when he was 16 driving an old beat up truck if he worked for the rec department than a new one.
Because it's not their vehicle, they're not gonna take care of it. Top, into the side. Oh, did I hit that post? Oh, well.
Okay, I kinda hang myself on the principle there, I think. Let's vote. Ms. Hunter? Ms. Trevor?
Yes.
Ms. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Chair votes no.
You're kind of cranky tonight.
I'm cranky. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, old business. Applewood Park. Like I said, we're close, we're real close. We're, the vacate, as far as I know, has gone through. Like I said, I tried to get a hold of Gail. Gail and I have been playing phone tag as to how we want to label it, as to part of A or G or D to get that lot line vacation where we don't have to go through eminent domain because it's going to be part of the greenbelt, which is S1. And in the covenants wise, it can be part of the greenbelt without being
Without going through eminent domain.
eminent domain. That's,
So being cranky, that same argument could be made. Now, don't misunderstand me, I'm not proposing that we do differently, but I think we need to be prepared as a board, that same argument could be made, that by by vacating lot lines, we are incorporating that parcel into a residential lot, rather than incorporating the residential lots into an S1 lot.
no,
That could be a argument for the future. I don't think it'll happen.
well,
Why
that's
would it?
what I'm gonna ask Gail, is if we can include it into the parcel D, I believe that's what it is, and I have so many things in my mind, that it's parcel D S1, which would be,
And then can we not, sorry, may I? So can we not, as a board, since we own those parcels, can we not vacate the covenants on those parcels by just a vote?
No. They're
Because we're the
already,
landowners.
they're already vacated under the S1 park site. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If it moves into it.
If it moves into an
then
S1.
the covenants doesn't cover our agreement.
Unless, you know, the argument, unless, rather than it going S1, it goes R8.
But you were not taking it to R8, we're taking it to S1.
But the argument could be made either way.
That's why
Rather
we
than
need,
taking R,
that's why we
S1,
need,
you take it to R8.
we need the D in there as a parcel D instead of being a parcel number, and that's it.
I think that's a potential for somebody that really wanted to pick on things to quite an argument. But I think we need to be prepared. That's not like you can't assure yourself for everything.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to make.
If we have to go, if the argument comes up, then we'll change the zoning or go to the zoning domain. Take it as an S1.
And I did have to do some research on the domain process, and that really is much more extensive than what we want to mess with.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be prepared for answering that argument. Go ahead. So how are we doing on gravel?
Gravel, should be done this week, the end of this week.
Remember, you said 2 weeks.
Yeah, it should be done this week, Neil.
I went up this.
But we had a snow day yesterday, I don't know whether they worked, there might be an extra day.
I went this morning and they're still working on it.
They're
but the pile
sloping
is
the
humongous.
sides right now.
They're what?
They're sloping the sides right now.
It's there.
They're dressing me up.
Okay.
But like they didn't work Saturday and Sunday, they would've got blown away.
I'm surprised that gravel didn't get blown away.
Yeah.
Well, I think the rest of the old businesses,
If you notice, we are testing out some systems here. I think the mics are working great. It is a little bit, I can hear people, except Sarah, which she don't have her hers on, but we also are, we have a camera now up there that's above the crowd that's doing that. I'm still putting it on before I go into a live stream. I want to make sure this is working. I know this camera, we thought it had a mic on it, and it don't. The mic is actually coming through the laptop. So that's one of the areas we're gonna change the camera out. Looking at calling in Maine to drop a plug-in up on top, so I don't have cords running down. The only place I'll have the cord is for the laptop to run through Zoom. But, yeah, so we're moving forward on the video with boardroom, going forward with a grant from SIPA. I think the biggest cost was the mic system. It was like $3,000 for the camera and stuff, where right now about 48, and then putting in the plug was probably gonna be another 2 from the electric to do that, so we're there. Make sure that we voted on, so we're down now to new business. That's
So,
just business.
one more comment, I guess, just kind of comment on over it. So I was up at the rec center, and Harry was up there too, so, and we saw the pool tables and the football table and stuff that Josh put in there. Looks good. You know, Josh gets a booyah for that.
He's adequate.
I think that looks like
He's also put in a projector for,
like a screen.
like, maybe movie nights for the kids, where they can come in and gather around and sit on the floor or in a chair or whatever and watch a movie, or who knows, maybe for a Super Bowl party or something. Put something on that way. Right now, he says with the projector, it's kind of hard if it's daylight outside. You don't get that best of quality, so he's also looking at maybe some blackout curtains or something, so that if he has a daytime deal where maybe it might be a football game or World Series or something like that, that they wanna do it, they can do it.
Anyway, looks good, that's a good job for him.
He did purchase with that money that we gave him, that huge value, he did purchase a ping pong table, cause he did find one, but it's hard to fold up, and he got it for nothing, but it was his that he bought, he hauled it and stuff. So he purchased a new ping pong table so that it can be folded up and stored.
Did well. All right, any new business? Yes, sir.
So if I may, so I mentioned last meeting about a game camera for that area that we're having problems with people dumping. I kinda would like to get the board approval, if possible, to install the game camera over on Metro property over there by where they're dumping.
That was off of, Cherry Creek Court.
Yeah, don't give me the line. I don't know what the name of that cul-de-sac is, but it's a cul-de-sac there, I believe.
Right there, up in Crocodile.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Cherry Creek Court, or Cherokee Creek Way. It's this little cul-de-sac right here.
I think probably regardless of where it is, does the board have a problem with,
Well, I won't be able to install it on any of the private property over
no,
there. But I would be able to install it on
We don't have
Metro
a problem
property
with
if you guys didn't have a problem.
What's the cost?
The one I ordered was about $400. It's got Wi-Fi. I wanna be able, cause if they see it and they tear it down, it's a regular game camera.
And they have
We
a
got
record
one.
on it anyway.
Yeah, with this one here, I can, if it sets off, it'll ping my phone.
Nice. Comments,
So-
suggestions?
So, we'll put our.
And we can, no,
Oh, you're.
I'm covered.
You're paid.
I've already bought it.
No, you can have it then, you can do it.
But I just want to
I'm
install
I'm just looking at the finances here, you know, I don't spend.
No, I already spent the money.
Okay.
I just wanted permission to install it on the property. And then I will set it up to where you will get,
Me and you both.
yeah, we'll both get dinged. I live right over there by it, and you live right over there by it, so if we get done, one of us can be there pretty darn quick.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Unless I'm checking to see if there's a motorboat out.
yeah.
All right, any other new business? I guess, I probably need the board's approval for, taking trespass action. I don't know if I need it or not, but I think I would approve,
What type of trespass action do you wanna take?
with the sheriff on the, Greenbelt. And the specific is in Applewood.
I'll make a motion.
Made it a motion?
Yeah, make a motion that we approve to.
I don't think it needs.
The motion, just.
It's our property.
It's our property, I want to be able to, I don't think I need it actually, I think I
You just
probably
want
have
verbal
it.
okay from us?
Authority, I think I have it, but I just would like to have the board be
Yeah, go for it.
on top of that.
It would make sense that the crankiest guy would be in charge You should kind of put it in the motion.
I make a motion at this time that we give Neil authority to take trespass action against, what?
Is to take trespass action.
To take trespass action, there you go.
On any of CCMD property.
I second the motion.
That covers all your green belts.
Yeah, on any CCMB property.
I say yes.
Any questions, I guess, first? It's moved and second. All right, let's vote. All in
Yes.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We move on into CCAC?
Okay, new construction, like I said, you'll probably have to vote in separate for new construction. The one on,
Oh, yeah, I'll have to abstain from that one.
I make a motion that we approve the garage on 6265 Maple Mesh.
Moved and second? You can't second, Sarah? Are you gonna second, can you second that? Okay. Maybe you already did, I just didn't hear you, huh?
Yes, you didn't have a mic on.
That's what you're.
Oh, you guys are sharing one.
Even though Mr. Kraus is gone, we'll vote. Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Oh, he's not here. Mr. Kraus?
It's been a long day. I understand.
No more magic mushroom. Chair votes yes, it's approved.
Okay, now you have 4375 Mustang Drive.
I make a motion at this time that we approve 4375 Mustang Drive.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Let's vote. Ms. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Luxell?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Kraus got to vote after all. And letters, Jim?
Letter of actions, you have one first letter that needs to go out, 2 second letters, and then you have 2 small claim cases to file.
You wanna break these up, or can we do them all together?
But we can do the letters together, let's do small claims separate.
So I make a motion at this time that we approve 1 first letter and 2 second letters.
Letter second. Moved and seconded. Questions? Let's vote. Mr. Luxell?
Yes.
Ms. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus? Yes. Chair votes yes. All right. Let's do the small claims. We have 2 small claims cases. Again, we're limited to 2 per month. And we just as well do it just to get going. Could I get a motion on those?
Make a motion at this time that we approve the 2 small claims cases to file.
Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Move and second. Discussion? You understand, that those are the red ones on the spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
Any questions on those? The process is going to be interesting. One of them is, because it is a covenant issue, we don't have to file it in the state of residence, otherwise you do. So covenant issues are a little bit specialized in small claims. Because the one C-65, the top one, it's not an individual, it's a corporation in Buffalo, Wyoming. That's gonna be an interesting one. Anyway, any other questions, comments? Okay, let's vote on that. Ms. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Mr. Luxell?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes.
Okay, next is communications. I read the one in the public hearing, and I had another one here. To the Board of Directors, this is a response to Bob Cook's letter to the Board of Directors that was received on September 16, 2022. This is what really happened, and I invite anyone to correct anything to make this a stronger or more factual statement. On September 1st, 2022, I was at the CCM building and spoke with Neil Elliott as he was getting ready to leave and would not be able to attend the next 2 CCAC meetings. And he had asked if I would take place on facilitating for the next 2 Thursday meetings. As Neil was leaving, Mr. Cook had come into the building where himself and Neil had a brief conversation and then proceeded to leave the building. Mr. Cook nor Neil stayed during the meeting on September 1st. Present at the meeting were Randy, Roger, Bernie. The meeting began at 1 p.m. There was only a only a new build for a shed that was needed to be reviewed. The spreadsheet was also reviewed. Bernie took 4 or 5 locations that was going to follow up on, and then the meeting was adjourned. On September 8th, 2022, I arrived early to prepare for the meeting. There was not any complaints or new construction applications for review. However, the previous applications for shed that had been received September 1st, 2022 lacked information such as color and texture. I proceeded to contact the person requesting the build prior to the meeting beginning at 1 p.m. Meeting had begun and Roger reviewed another packet and it too was missing some information. I then proceeded to contact the person to follow up for missing information. Prior to the meeting beginning, I set up a table and 4 chairs for the meeting. While I was finishing up my phone call, Mr. Cook proceeded to walk through the door with a folder in his hand, and he pulled up a chair at the table. Pleasantries were exchanged, and I proceeded with starting the meeting. Folders were being reviewed and discussed amongst the committee members. Bernie had shown up a little late, and I had asked him if he would like to report on his site visits. He proceeded to report on one of the complaints south of town, the Dodge residents, that they were beginning to build a trench. A complaint was filed last year with Pueblo County Sheriff's Department and the Health Department, and the gentleman was going to be putting the sewage in the back of a truck and hauling it out and dispose of it somewhere. I suggested that we would call the Health Department to find out the status of this complaint, since he was now digging a trench. At this time, Mr. Cook proceeded to tell me that I did not have the authority or the right to place a call to the Health Department. I informed Mr. Cook that it was an ongoing issue, that they had previously been contacted, and I wanted to follow up to make them aware of the trench being built at this time. He began to argue and raise his voice, stating repeatedly that I do not have the authority to contact the Health Department. At this point, Roger and Randy stated we could contact the Health Department, that there was no law against it. Mr. Cook then proceeded to raise his tone higher and began to use profanity towards me. I stooped to his level, used profanity towards him. I admit I lost my composure and my temper, but I also am tired of being bullied and intimidated by Mr. Cook. I believe that Mr. Cook should not be at any of the CCACC meetings, as he was not board approved to be on the committee. Mr. Cook argued nose to nose with Roger and Randy, trying to provoke a response. I then made a comment that the meeting is concluded, and Mr. Cook proceeded to continue to use profanity and give him more and more out of hand. I stated that the meeting was adjourned multiple times and proceeded to ask him to leave the building. Mr. Cook then raised the folder and said, no, there are things to be reviewed. I stated that the meeting was adjourned and that he was not a committee member and there was nothing to review. He continued to argue and raise his voice, wanting to review what he had brought in his folder. At the time, Mr. Lowe, Mr. Davenport were present, and some words were exchanged between the three of them. I stated again that the meeting was over and that if he did not leave, I would contact the Sheriff's Department to have him removed from the building. At that time, the noise had gotten so loud that Jim came out of his office and things quieted down, and he left out the back of the building. The meeting did not continue at this point. Randy, Roger, Jim, and Bernie were just trying to get me calmed down. More than anything, there was some talk amongst all of us. At that time, Mr. Cook had gone around and entered through the front of the building, where he did see the 4 of us still talking in the back area. He proceeded to state that we were still having the meeting, which had already been adjourned. There was no report that were completed. September 15th, I came into the building a little early, and Neil was there. I shared my thoughts on what happened on the 8th and felt that he has no business being at the meeting, as he is not a committee member. I stated that he is not on the committee. I am tired of being bullied and tired of being yelled profanities by him. Roger then showed up for a moment. Neil shared with us both that we are not members of that he shared with us that we are not members of the committee, we are just facilitators with people. When Roger left, there was no one else here yet. I went back into the office to go over bills, and when I went back into the meeting room, Bob was sitting there at the table with Neil. There was no meeting because no committee members were present. I wanted to talk to Neil about the health department showing up. He stated that they had showed up previously and that we had provided them with 4 total sites for them to look at. I asked if he went with them. He stated that he did not go with them and did not know what they had found or if they had done anything. I said, okay, and was just wanting to know the status. Bob then raised his hand and he is recording and asked that address we were talking. Neil gave him the address. Bob raised his hand again and wanted to know the name of the health department personnel. Neil shared that he did not know. Neil and I had known about the property and what was going on with them. I feel that Bob had no business interrupting us. He does not have any vested interest in it. He is not a member, and it was not a meeting. After I had looked at that and saw that was going on, I left. I just left. I was there for maybe 15 minutes. The CCACC is merely an advisory committee. It is a private meeting held in a public place. Residents are welcome by invitation only. No, if a resident that has a complaint or wants to address the committee in person, they would make a request to advance to the invited. The meeting should be for a specific agenda item. Once that agenda item has been discussed, the request would leave and other business would take place. In the event that 3 or more board members are in attendance, then there would be a quorum and the agenda would follow a format, open meeting format. Anyone that was at the meeting can correct any of the statements I have made. This is the 3rd time that it has been belligerent with me and other staff members. If this continues, I will make motions that he cannot attend any committee meeting, as I will not be involved in any meetings with him being present. Board meetings I can accept. Thank you. Carrie Hodges.
All right, thank you. Along that line, I have these 2 reprimand letters that need to be read into minutes as well. They pertain to the same meeting.
May I make a comment?
No, you may not. These are reprimand letters to Mr. Lowe and to Mr. Davenport.
Point of order, sir.
I don't accept your point of order.
My contention is you discussed,
Harry?
well, here's my contention. You discussed, okay, I'll let it just ride where it is. But you're out of order. I'm sorry.
Then you appeal to the rest of the board. If the rest of the board thinks I'm out of order, then they make that decision.
My point was,
Harry, you appeal to the rest of the board. The rest of the board has to decide. Does the rest of the board consider the chairman to be out of order?
I just want to make a comment.
No, stop. The question was made. Do you feel like the chairman's been out of order?
So are we voting on this?
Yes.
Then my vote would be yes.
Okay. Mr. Kraus?
No.
Did you vote?
Yeah, I said no.
No.
I don't think you're out of order. I'm not sure.
I wouldn't.
Proceed. I'll just let it go. I'll proceed.
All right, so the vote would be, I guess that,
You and I
Harry
can't
would vote
vote.
yes, of course. I'd vote no. So it's 3-2, then you can make your point.
Okay. My point is, when I was not at the meeting on the 27th, neither were Roger or Randy. only a certain people were present at that meeting. And you read at the board meeting that night a letter from Mr. Cook. That was his opinion of what happened. He didn't mention anything about profanity, about nothing else. Neither one of those men even touched him. They stood there and the man started it all, and he should not even been at the table. And yet he sat there as if he's a member of the committee, and he could sit out here as an audience like anybody else. He's not on that committee, and yet he has been there every time for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I will not be a part of any committee members' meetings with him ever again. And you already got rid of Larry Bird, you already got rid of Bob Smith, and Randy and Roger and I will not attend any meetings when Bob Cook is present. But we will still do things, and I think these letters of reprimand are based upon his comments and not what really happened at the meeting. And Randy looked at this, my comments, and he did add some of those things in at the end. And he said, Bob got into us, Bob wanted to go outside, but Randy and Roger did not. They kept their cool. Anybody that lost their cool was me, because they get tired of being sworn at for no reason at all. It's just a meeting. It's just a meeting trying to brainstorm stuff, and you don't have to have tape recorders, you don't have to have anything, but every time since that happened, Mr. Cook comes to the meeting and he has a tape recorder, and he sits right at the table. And he's not a member, and I think we need to do some homework, because I'm not the only one that he mistreats. You ask some women in this office how he treats them when no one else is around and he's not recording.
Let's keep your point.
And I'm done.
Okay. All right. The next correspondence. This is basically housekeeping. To be able to have any success at the endeavor we pursue, it is imperative that regardless of differences in personalities, beliefs, goals, or attitudes, we must work together. Differing understanding of an issue is valuable, but only if the different positions are brought forth with knowledge and truthfulness and without threatening or aggressive attitude. An unacceptable confrontation between local citizen Bob Cook and CCAAC members Harry Hochstetler, acting chairman, Randy Davenport, and Roger Lau occurred during the CCAAC committee meeting on September 8, 2022. It appears Mr. Cook questioned the authority of an action being taken by the committee chairman and was agitated by the response received. Apparently, the chairman did not control the situation, and disagreements and interaction quickly became heated and aggressive, with Mr. Davenport and Mr. Lowe verbally threatening Mr. Cook with physical violence. This letter goes to both Mr. Lowe and to Mr. Davenport. Mr. Lowe, we appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to volunteer your time and effort to the CCAAC. We value you and hope you continue to serve. The CCMD board will not allow violence or threats of violence by any person at any board meeting, committee meeting, or gathering of CCMD personnel at any time or place. Mr. Lowe, you are hereby reprimanded for your actions at the CCAAC committee meeting on September 8, 2022. Any future such action may result in your being banned from any meeting participation and removed from any committee and banned from future participation. This goes to both Mr. Davenport and to Mr. Lowe with their names put in appropriate places. And that's all I have.
Is that the choice of the board, though?
That's what I handed to the board the last meeting for input, and yes, I got input only from one board member, and because of that, I presume that's where we're at. To make a statement, this reprimand simply is not verifying or disputing any of the actions on the letter that Mr. Hochstetler read at any time. This simply is, we will not, CCMD will not condone or accept any threats of violence at any time, any place, whether it be amongst our own employees, amongst board members, in any situation in CCMD, we cannot accept any threats of violence. Now, belligerence, profanity, we should accept those, but we certainly can't accept threats of violence.
But the violence didn't come from those two members. The violence came from Mr. Cook. He was the aggressor.
May I?
That gets into an argument.
Well, no, we have witnesses. I'm not gonna, I'm done with it, guys. You already know what's going on, I'm
May
done
I
with
just
it.
make a quick comment, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, Mr. Hochstetler stated earlier that you don't have to record the meetings. However, I would argue with you, sir,
We are recording.
because if that meeting would have been recorded, then there would have been no he said, she said right now.
And they are now.
Well,
And
I
they
will not be
should
in any
go.
more of those meetings with Bob Cook present, period.
The meetings are being recorded.
Yeah, you don't need to
That
do
was
that.
my only comment.
You need to do that
It was,
for committee members.
It was actually verified by Mr. Lowe that, yes, that he did make a threat of violence. And we cannot have that. Regardless of the circumstance, we cannot have threats of violence.
Is it normal for Bob to sit, as a citizen, to sit at the table?
The statement here that Mr. Hochstetler said that it's a private meeting, it's not.
Well, I
It is
didn't say it was a private meeting, but is it normal for him to sit right at the table with us?
You can, just like, as far as Mr. Carrs can move his chair up next to the table if he wants to. It is a.
Come on, buddy.
Can I sit back there?
You can sit back here if you want. There's no magic.
5 months.
All I can say is.
It is a public meeting, it is a meeting in public.
But they're volunteers, and I think if
Okay, enough said.
if you don't take care of the situation, it's gonna get worse.
We're arguing about this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask a question that has nothing to do with violence or who should be there or anything? My only question as I listened to the 3 letters, or 2 basically, was the CCACC is dealing with information submitted by people for a specific cause. The cause being to get permission to build or buy property or put up a building.
For complaints.
Or complaints. Is that, for instance, if I'm applying to buy blah blah, is that a wise thing that anyone can hear that information? Or should that information be privileged at that point to only the people that are involved? And I'm not disagreeing with your, I wholeheartedly believe, as chairman of the board for however long that was, there were many nights I almost bit my tongue through. But in a committee setting, once that property gets here, that action is going to be an official public action that we have to take. We, as the Colorado City Metro District Board of Directors, have to take. Up until that time, do I have a right as a private citizen not to have all the information on those forums shared with people who are not directly involved with that process? That would be my only thought on the matter that we might need to think about.
I think that becomes a resolution that the board has to, that question is apt. But I think it becomes a resolution that the board has to adopt. If we're going to adopt it as a private committee meeting, then we're going to have to pass a resolution to do so. Now, you say, is it wise? Is there a need for the public to know? One of the fears of government in general is transparency. Is there a reason for the public not to know?
And I don't know the answer, that's why I posed it as a question.
I mean, the thing is, when we're doing houses and stuff, there's no figures mentioned, it's just, you're looking at plans and setbacks and stuff like that. The only other problem is when you go out and do the site visits for, violations, then that's when you start discussing things, and then you start looking, and sometimes it's nice to have different views of things. But I think,
I think that is an apt question. I think I also would, I don't know. I think Mr. Carr's comment from some times ago is that you need to be able to confront your accuser. And isn't that transparency? But, yeah.
I understand. I'm just thinking that, you know, if my dealings are with Colorado City Metro District, they're allowed by covenants or law or whatever, that doesn't mean I necessarily want everybody in town to know that I'm purchasing the local brothel or anything.
I think that truly does bear a question to the board. I guess that would pass a resolution to something like that.
So it might be something we should.
So may I real quick?
Yeah.
So, I kind of agree with that, but I kind of don't agree with it. So.
Feel strongly both ways?
Yeah, because I agree that it should be public, however, they're not doing any, so they're strictly an advisory committee. So they have no authority, none. The authority is right here in the board, so they do have the right to face their accuser, and they do have the right to speak on their behalf right here at the meeting.
yes, yeah.
Okay, because this is where the decision is made anyway. The people that are, the CCAAC or CCACC, they're not making any type of decisions. They're gonna make advice to us.
Recommendation.
A recommendation, which I do agree carries a lot of weight. However, the accused has a right to sit in that chair, sign up to speak, and to rebut what the CCACC says
Recommends.
or recommends. They have that right here at the meeting,
And we've had that happen.
and we have had that happen.
But recently, we don't know what the addresses were that we just approved tonight. In record, we don't know what they were, just said letter 1 to this and this. Before, if you think about it, we used to put the address of the violation.
And that's kind of the point that I think that has been brought up to me is that the CCAAC advisory committee de facto makes decisions because the board does not review the decisions. And that's something we need, if we're going to make those meetings not open to the public, then the board is going to have to review each decision independently.
Have a packet on each decision,
Yes.
or,
Yes,
not a packet,
Like we used to.
but a page on each decision.
yes.
Yeah, we used to do that, but the
And that-
address and everything.
Otherwise,
That probably
we have
would
de
be the best
facto
way to do
given this, to this point anyway, with the way we've been doing it, we have de facto been given the advisory committee authority.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% with that, that if we're gonna close those meetings to public, then we need to be more vigilant at our end, that we're reviewing everything that's coming from
Right.
it.
See, when I was chair, I had people come in and say, here, I got a plan for you. Well, we didn't act on it that day. They gave it to us and showed us stuff, and then they left. And then we sat down and we looked at it, and then we went out to the site visit. And if there's things missing, then you call them up and say, this isn't here, and then they bring it in.
But see, that exactly is the point. I believe we are being transparent in that process because the people involved, and maybe they should stay while you look at it, the people involved are there. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's a lack of transparency that my business with the CCM, with ABC, is anybody else's business at that point. Once it gets to this meeting, then it's everybody's business, it's on the agenda, but.
Okay, so that.
I mean, you don't, nothing happens till they get the letter, right?
Kind of cut to the chase here then, that should be brought up to the board on the agenda.
We probably ought to put that
To
in
make
study session next
resolution
time.
whether to,
Yeah.
if the desire is to make those,
Time after.
Does that feel non-transparent to you? You understand what I'm saying?
I'm glad you asked. I think you're talking apples and oranges here, because you made the comment that about new builds and things like that, okay? And you also made the comment of complaints. To me, there's totally two different things here, because you told me that you checked with the lawyer, I believe, and he said, no, that we did not have the right to know our accuser, or
Right.
face our accuser.
make sure now that I didn't mislead you there. We are the accuser, so then you have the right to confront us.
Because it is brought to their attention,
It's brought to the
To
board's
go look
attention,
at
and
it.
then we become the accuser.
and they're the ones that accuse you, yeah.
That's, I don't know.
Well,
To me, that's
Slippery slope.
that's splitting hairs. That's why I said, if it ever happens to be, we're going to court. And I mean, I'm not threatening, but that's a simple fact that I'll go to court or something like that.
Neil, can I add something here?
Go ahead.
Within your agenda, it's a meeting, it's like right here. You don't want the public asking you everything that goes on. And that's why we do have kind of a study session, that if they want to put input or whatever. But even in the same aspect of that, if you have something that you want to put into it, you sign up and you put it on there to be addressed in the meeting. So, as the committee's trying to resolve and deal, so if somebody has a complaint that they're coming in to deal with, you should have a section within your agenda saying, okay, community, input. And at that point, that would be when the non-committee members should be allowed to talk and bring in the voice.
Okay, so
You know-
that would be an alternative. The
That's-
other alternative would be just to close the meetings.
No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
That's kind of
That's why I'm saying, you wanna keep that transparency, but maybe by taking control of it more in the sense of running it like this kind of a meeting than just a committee as, okay, we're doing this. It's nice if you do have that knowledge out there and you can rely on it, that it stays on task of what it's doing, then yes. But if you have somebody out there that you ask and it goes from here to here to here to there, then it's not
Go ahead,
good.
guys.
Okay, if someone comes to you and files a complaint against something on my property or me, okay, during this CCAA, whatever committee it is, ABC committee, do you discuss that person's name and address and
No.
it's just anonymous?
Yeah, I mean, the form just has, here's the complaint, here's the address. I mean, I could go by if I wanted to, there's lots of violations I see. But I
Millions of
don't,
them.
okay, but I don't do that, that's not my role. It has to come from I don't go out and look for trouble. Trouble finds me. So what I do,
That's no lie.
so what I do is if you go by a place and say, okay, that's in violation, they give me a form, then I have to go out and check it. But I don't go around, and I don't have a checklist where I go around and
I
look.
think Dennis's
He
question.
goes out and, he goes out and looks for it.
No, I
No,
don't.
you don't.
He stopped at my house.
I did because I seen you were standing out there and I wanted to meet
Missed you
new
last
people.
meeting.
And I got you involved in here, didn't I?
Last meeting, he said, they were talking about the chipper pile and the gravel pit, and he says, and Dennis isn't even here to hear about it. We're gonna get you scheduled, so he was just thinking about
I
it.
heard that. I did hear that part of it.
So
And
you're,
then I watched it on YouTube too, to make sure everything was correct.
I even tried to get a hold of you twice before the meeting started.
Did you?
Do you see
How?
me? Do you see me?
How
Because I
did-
seen you on Zoom.
Oh.
And then you disappeared, and then you come back, and it was like,
Okay, can we finalize this meeting?
let's
We're having a public discussion.
Okay.
We can have a
We
public
can have
discussion
that
after the
afterwards.
meeting.
So I make a motion that we close this meeting.
I second that motion.
Moving in second, any complaints about that?
nope.
Meeting is adjourned.
Make it nice.
I wanna sit on that.
Let me show you the,
Talk to
You can come
You
in
can
and,
join and
you can
come
join it,
into
we
it.
just get approved by the board and sit right there.
I'm gonna be gone.
Settle it
That's
down.
okay.
So do it while you're here.
I know.
Just get approved, just put your little
Checks that-
application in and get approved while you're here. 5 months that you're down there, you're down there.
So,
Harass them on
he
their.
said, don't leave.
Hell, you could do it in 2 states.
Oh, God.
I looked at the minutes, actually hasn't been down already.
So are you won't be here for the next one, Dennis?
No, I don't think so. No, I won't.
It ain't got that cold yet.
Study
Huh?
session.
I know, but I'm a vice president of a metal detecting and gold searching club in Arizona, and our meetings start next Tuesday.
Oh,
Oh, I gotta be there.
it's still hot down there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Regular meeting.
What's this?
that's what we get.
Huh?
My head's starting to cramp up.
You can't-
Oh.
volunteer.
All it is ad.